Hello people of YouTube and welcome back. So yeah, I thought I'd do a quick video, not a pickups video or anything like that. I've decided to sell up again. I just can't keep satisfied with what I've got on my shelves. So just get rid of it all. Yeah, so this isn't going to be a pickup video. We're not going to be refilling these shelves. We're just going to be talking about stuff that was on shelves previously. Yeah, so in the chat, in one of our group chats that we have, we was talking about, well, I was talking about like video game nostalgia. I was watching a few videos of room tours and stuff like that, and it seems to be very prominent nowadays that someone has like one or two shelves dedicated to a certain franchise or maybe a certain genre or something, or maybe even a console that is like more prevalent than any other that you have. And I'd love to know stories about why people have like set aside these shelves, not these ones, obviously, about why you collect for this certain thing. So yeah, I mentioned about it in the group, and um, Martin, the Geek Master, who I'll put a link down below, did an awesome video about his Pokemon collection, which kind of was like what I was thinking is a lot of people that talk about collecting Pokemon, but they don't say why they collect Pokemon and why it's like sort of like on their shelves other than maybe value, which is that's not fun really, is it? Another guy that I watched recently was Retro Import Gamer. James, he did an awesome like rundown of one of his favorite franchises, which is Outrun, which fantastic video, and that's the kind of stuff that I would love to see people do. I'm rubbish at this kind of stuff. This is why I don't do YouTube anymore. But I'm going to have a crack at it myself. And one of my shelves that I used to have proudly in place up there was a shooter section. It was, and not only just like shooters, shmups as people call it, but it was very heavily centered towards Parodius. I even had like the Easter Island head. It wasn't anything like to do with Parodius. It wasn't like branded or anything like that. It was like a garden ornament. But they're in the game, like in every Parodius game and Gradius game. So I had to have one of them. I had like the little octopus plush. Yeah, I was just starting like a little Parodius shrine, and even got the music soundtrack CD that I got off Secret Santa. That was very proudly in place. They've not gone. They are definitely not gone, and they are going to be getting displayed. Once I get a game room set up again, they'll be displayed properly, pride of place, with more shooters, and that's what I kind of want to talk about. So yeah, like back in the early days, I was talking to Craig here again the other day about like shooters and like what was our first one that we ever remember. Now I can't really, it's really hard to pinpoint sort of like back then, but like I would say the first shooter that I ever played was a game called Mega Mania on the Atari 2600. It was like a single screen shooter, very much like Space Invaders, except it had more stuff going on. There was like little shapes, different shapes that we used to go down the screen. We used to call them the gates, and like spaghetti. What was it? There was like spaghetti shapes, Weetabixes, all coming down and trying to attack you. And yeah, like when you died, it made like a power down sound. Like if you know Atari 2600, you sort of know the sounds that it'll make. Like power down and then re-energize again. Oh, that was ingrained into my head for so long. I played that game to death more than any other Atari 2600 games. But yeah, I would say that's probably my first shooter. Asteroids maybe was another one. You could probably count that as one. I never played Space Invaders until a lot later. I never played it on the 2600. I don't think we ever had a cartridge for it. So yeah, kind of missed out on that one. But I would say Mega Mania was so much better than that game. So then we make the leap a bit more into the like true 8-bit. I mean, I think 2600 is 8-bit, but like it didn't really unleash the power of the 8-bit that could really be unleashed until the NES. And that game, of course, was Gradius. Gradius and Salamander, two games. Well, actually, it was called Life Force, where we had it. But yeah, I can remember going to a specific place. I think it was in a place called Brig. There was like a game shop. It was like in like a little village market town. And it was like this game shop, and I can't remember exactly where it was or anything like that. I just remember going in, and it was like stocked full of like video games. And I can remember the guy. We asked for like a recommendation of a game, and he recommended 10 Yard Fight, which at the time I don't think we got 10 Yard Fight, but he recommended it to me anyway, which is an American football game. I was just a naive young kid there. I must have been about 6, 7, maybe 8. So I was like, oh yeah, I just want video games, video games. So I got that. And it was terrible. I was like, I don't even understand how to play this game. And then the other game that I got was Gradius, of course. I kind of spoiled it for us, didn't we, there? But yeah, Gradius, however you want to say it. And Jesus Christ, I was hooked ever since I played that game. I was like, just the soundtrack and everything like that, again, highly ingrained into my psyche. It really was. And I had the NES for ages, like playing some fantastic games. I had a really good starter set of sort of like Castlevania, Mega Man, Mario's, really good starter set. But like, yeah, the Shmups was fantastic. Not that we had too many on the NES. Like I say, I think it was just them two, or at least they're the only two that really kept in my mind. And then after that, it was the power of the Amiga. Fantastic system. However, the games, when you really look back to them, they don't hold up. The shooters are very bland, but they were mine. Like I played on the Amiga, I played so many shooters. I probably played more shooters on the Amiga than any other system in existence. Like even to this day, any of them really worth talking about? Not really. They've all got like really weird names, like Hybris and like something with lots of X's and Z's and stuff like that, and not the best. But one game that really stuck in my mind, and it's again not even a good game. One I don't actually own. It's not an expensive game, but it's just I've never got the version I want because there's a specific box that I want, and it's called Stargoose. Yeah, it's sort of like an isometric shooter, a lot like what's it called? Viewpoint on the Neo Geo. It's a little bit like that, where you're kind of going up and down, sort of isometrically going up to the top right, and you're like in a little spaceship that looks a bit like a goose. Funny enough, no sound effects on it. Like not, well, I'm pretty certain it doesn't have sound effects. I need to research these before we do these. These are sort of like on the whim videos, but yeah. Yeah, there was the sound effects were just sort of like non-existent, but the soundtrack, it just held you going, and I kind of like recall like the soundtrack sort of like bouncing you along. I kind of almost can hum it. I'm not going to, but yeah, I really need to get that back in my life because it was a good time. Like I said, not it wasn't always about the best games, and like I think that Amiga era of shooters sort of like got me really hooked into shooters. And it also sort of taught me a lesson that they don't have to be the best games. They really don't. I really enjoy some of the most blandest shooters going just because it's that act of shooting. It's very basic. It's sort of like one of the early sort of like video game tropes that I mean one of the first games was a shooter, wasn't it? Was it like what's it called? Space something, Star something? I don't know. Uh, but yeah, basically a spaceship shooting something. It's like it's sort of like the genesis of video games, isn't it? But yeah, after that, Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo is what I got, and I played R-Type a lot on the Amiga, and then I got Super R-Type, thinking, Jesus Christ, this is going to be super. It really wasn't, but it wasn't a terrible game, and I always remember thinking there was a lot of slowdown on that, and that was because there was a lot going on. Like back in the day, like slowdown was like almost like a badge of honor to me. Like people like lambast it all the time, but back in the day, I used to sort of like cheer for slowdown. Going, look at this, in my poor little console trying to process all this power of this video game, and it was like shooters that used to really sort of like slow it down a lot back then. Again, it was not that many that really stood out for me, but playing games now, I've found some really cool, because maybe I'll talk about that in a second or so, but this is more about nostalgia, what I'm collecting, or what I'm going to be putting on shelves. But yeah, um, Super Nintendo came and went, and then we went on to the Mega Drive, and yeah, again, loads of great games. But the one game that sort of like really stuck into my mind was Atomic Robo Kid, a game that we didn't get in PAL territories, but sort of like I always felt like it did. Like I just don't understand how I got it. It must have been I must have had a Japanese copy. Um, and like I can remember when I started collecting a game, it was one of the first games I went to look for, and I couldn't find it. I was like, I just didn't understand it. Um, and yeah, it's a really cool sort of like side-scrolling shooter that was like you had a really big character that was like a little robot kid. Really hard to play because of the size of him, but like again, it was sort of like it was always about character development over sort of like actual gameplay for me through the Amiga. Like it was like I used to really enjoy style over substance games, and I still do. I really do. I enjoy a good visual aesthetic, and I fucking went over it. The game that really sort of like solidified that on the Super Nintendo. Of course, there was one that really stood out. It was Parodius. Of course, it was. I had that originally on the Japanese Super Famicom, playing on my poor pal Super Nintendo, and I can remember it used to back in the day used to draw all the characters from that box art because it was so much going on. Like it was like there was so many different graphical styles sort of like competing in this rock hard game that you just could not beat in one go. It just impossible. It took years and years of playing. Eventually, I got the PAL version. I just didn't like the box art as much. It was so the Japanese Super Famicom box art was so cool. I can remember going to my local Hemsville market and going, no, I need to get my Super Famicom version back. I couldn't tell the difference between 50 and 60 hertz back then. None of us could. If you really talk about it, could any of us really? Even now, can we tell? I know Dylan can because he always tells me off for it. But yeah, it's not really that noticeable. But yeah, Parodius. Oh my goodness, that game has been so prevalent in my life. I've always had sort of like a copy banding about. Even like I didn't have it when I stopped when I became into the real world and sort of like when I started going out and didn't have any video games. But when I first started getting video games again, I got it for the NES. That was my first foray back into it, and I was like, this isn't quite the same, is it? So then that spurred me on to get a Super Nintendo again, and obviously a copy of Super Parodius. I had to get it, and then Sega Saturn. Funny enough, didn't really have any. I think when the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn came out, wasn't really into games that wasn't 3D. It was really bad of me. It's really weird how we was back then as youths. I wanted progression, and I always saw shooters and 2D games as going back in time. I always like going forward, and yeah, even though going back to these kind of games now, they're impossible to play, but it's so good like collecting again and finding out about all these games that I missed. So many good shooters on the PS1 and the Sega Saturn. They are probably some of the top tier shooters ever. I think you really have got a cornucopia of titles to choose from that era. But yeah, like PS2 missed that era. To be honest, not really too many fantastic games for that. Unless you go into the Japanese library and you got like Ibara and all the cave shooters, of course, love the cave shooters. But now, is it nostalgia? PS4, Jesus Christ, this is like my favorite console ever. We've got shooters coming left, right, and center, coming out of our ears. People keep going on about the Switch as the shooter console of choice. Is it really? You get a little bit more lag. To be honest, I'm not going to notice 2 or 3 frames what it is, but it just shows that I don't understand why people go on about the Switch as the shooter console of choice. Don't like the the standard like control methods of it. It hurts using the Joy-Con for too long. The buttons are too far apart for me. I've only got little thumbs. So the PS4 is perfect. It's a perfect standard pad for it. Of course I can get new pads, but I like using the original controllers. It makes me feel like I'm playing that version of a console. Do you know what I mean? I could be playing anything if I had a third party controller, but yeah. And of course now we've got the arcades on the go. My PS4's hooked up to the arcade, so of course it has to be PS4 shooters. And Jesus Christ, there's so many good ones. I'm really enjoying, what's it called, Sisters Royale. I really love that game. It's not for everyone. It's not the best game. Again, Amiga has brought me up to this, but I really find it like really whimsical. You're sort of like running along, sort of shooting around. You can get trapped behind rocks and stuff like that. But I'm so close to a 1cc. I need to replay that game this year and really like 1cc it on the normal difficulty. That is my I need to do it. Love that game. Put so many hours into it. The Death Smiles games, they've all been re-released onto the PS4. The only thing is, there is a lot of like cave shooters that unfortunately haven't gone to PS4 yet. They are on the Switch, and I refuse to get them because one day they will get released on the PS4. I'm hoping. But yeah, absolutely fantastic genre. The artwork on the games are second to none. I love like that space sort of look. I mean, if you see my hands, I've got fucking spaceships on my hands. I've got spaceships tattooed to here. I've got Parodius tattoos and everything like that. So I really sort of like love that idea of aesthetic as a space shooter. I love it. Although a lot of them I've been enjoying recently, like Raiden and stuff like that, are not really space shooters until like right to the end. But yeah, like it's it's fantastic. And then you got the music. The music of these games, again, I don't think there's many games that like are as iconic. I mean, if you think Gradius and Parodius, them theme tunes, I'll never get them theme tunes out of my head. I have them on my bloody ringtones. Do you know what I mean? So when someone rings me up, it's like. Right, that's the only humming you're gonna get now. Anyway, that is a little bit of nostalgia, a bit of a brief discussion of why I collect for this incredible genre. It's again mainly Parodius. I fucking love that series. But then it has the umbrella of other shooters coming around it, and I'd love to hear what your collecting habits are. What do you display on your shelves proudly that you might not have talked about before? I'd love to hear about it. What's your nostalgia? What got you into it? What systems? Was there a specific story? I love stories. I'm rubbish at talk, like saying them myself, but I love hearing about them. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and hope to hear about your stuff soon. See you later. Peace.